Okay, this is accounting session number 2 of 4 with Geller Insurance, and we're now just beginning to address the issue of reversing invoices. And so when we find a mistake on an invoice, there are 2 ways to fix that. If it's a commission adjustment like on direct bill, I'll show you that when we do direct bill, but when it's agency bill, we typically reverse and rebill the invoice. So I'm going to open up this invoice by clicking the details icon, and you can see that on this screen you have 2 options for reversing. I could click reverse now, and what that does is it creates an exact opposite invoice, a reversal invoice of this one to back this one out. And depending on my security, it may backdate it to the prior month, which is the date that this invoice was booked. Or if my security doesn't allow me to post, to a prior month, then it would post to the first day of the next month that's open, which would be February 1st. So depending on your security, and we can talk about that a little bit later on, if you want your people to be able to backdate to a prior month, or if you'd rather just lock down each month and not allow that, and only the administrators can have that exception. But so if I hit reverse now, it creates an exact opposite invoice to back all this information out. It undoes the billing. If I click reverse and rebill, it also undoes the billing, but it presents you with a new invoice that's unposted, an exact copy of the one you reversed, so that you can just go make the minor change without having to recreate the new invoice from scratch. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So reverse now does not create the rebill invoice. If I wanted to create one, then I'd have to hit add new invoice and start over. But reverse and rebill does reverse and create the rebill invoice. So here's my chance. Are you sure you want to do this? Sure. I'll say OK. And it's telling me I'm reversing to a locked period. It's telling me, and I'm an administrator, so it will let me do this. So I'll say OK, and it takes just a second to reverse that invoice and create the rebill invoice. Okay, there it is. So I'm going to not mess with this for a minute. I'm going to click my back button, my summary button, to go back to the client file and see what I've done. And I must have this set to unpaid. Yeah, let me just clear that so you can see everything. Okay, so we started out with invoice 31457, and then it was reversed by invoice 31599. So the negative symbol in front of that triple number, the negative symbol indicates that this one is the reversal of that one. And then the rebill invoice is the one with a plus symbol in front of it. So here it is. It stands alone as its own invoice, but it gives you an audit trail with that triple invoice number to show you the relationship between the original, the reversal, and the new one. So if you have an account that has a lot of reversals, hopefully you won't, but that makes it really easy for you to track, okay, this one was the reversal of that one, and here's the rebill. So looking up at the top one with a negative symbol in front of it, this is the rebill invoice. I'm sorry, this is the reversal invoice with a negative sign. It is the reversal of this one, and it's also related to the rebill invoice, same as this one. And then the rebill invoice starts fresh with a new number. It's the same number, but it doesn't show the triple relationship unless we reverse that one, and then it will show the relationship of its own reversals. So when it reverses, it leaves it unposted, the new one. And so we can go back in there now and work on it and fix whatever was wrong with it. So I click the details to open it back up, and I look down the invoice and I say, oh, wait a minute. Somebody messed up on the premium. This should have been $1,400. And so you can open the details of that line and say $1,400 and then say OK. And I fix that premium. And perhaps the commission was wrong, or I forgot a tax, or I forgot a fee, or somebody put in the wrong tax amount, or any number of other things you can fix as long as it's unposted. But let's say the rest of it looks fine. So now we can post the rebill invoice, and it gives me a chance to change my mind here. And it's now posted. And notice I can reverse and rebill this one if I need to, if I realize I missed something, or I can just reverse it to back it out without creating the rebill invoice. So if I go back to my transaction summary now, I'm going to see 3 invoices, and all 3 of them are posted. Posted, posted, posted. And one other thing you'll notice that these 3 have an asterisk in front of them. And what that means is that we have an internal note on those invoices. So if I just hover my mouse over the status, it shows me whatever I've typed in for the internal note for that invoice. So if you have a client with a lot of invoices, rather than having to open each one to see what it is, this would say endorsement added Caprice Classic, and this would say endorsement removed Ford pickup. And you can, whatever the invoice is, if you use the internal note, you can tell what it is without even opening it. So it is kind of handy to use that internal note. Do you need me to show you where that is? Because I'll remind you where that is. So if you open it back up, it's right here, internal note, and that's where I've typed in that message. But if I needed to get to it, I'd click Edit Invoice Header. Now in this case, that's all I can change is the internal note because this one's posted. So it will let me update this, but I can't change anything else on the invoice just because it's a posted record. And so now when I come back out, that internal note now has the test message added to it, whereas these 2 don't, because I only changed that one. Does that make sense? Okay, I have a pop quiz for you. Does the client ever see the internal note? Not unless they're sitting in your office and looking at your computer, which has happened, so be careful what you type. This guy is a real jerk. You don't want to do that, even if you don't think he'll ever see it, because he probably will. Just like Facebook, you don't ever post anything that you don't want 1,000 people to see. So, all right. Okay, so we did a reversal, and whether it's direct bill or agency bill, it works the same way. You have an opportunity to make changes in the rebill invoice. Okay, everybody ready now to switch hats and receive payments? Okay, there are 2 places you can receive a payment. One is that we can go over to the accounting side of the program and receive it with all the other types of accounting transactions. Or while we're on the client's file, we can do a receive payment right here from the screen. So I'll show you this way first, and then we'll go look at how we can do it from the accounting side. So let's say in this case, this $2,050 invoice, that the client's going to make a $500 down payment. Then the rest is going to be paid by the finance company, for instance. So from here, I can just click Receive Payment. And again, we're just under the Transactions tab of the client. So if the client walks in the door, I would click Search. I would look for data source. I would click the details to open that up. And I would go to Transactions and say, oh, yes, sir, looks like you owe us a lot of money. And he says, well, I'll pay you $500 today. And you say, okay. So Receive Payment creates a receipt accounting transaction, and they look like this. You'll notice that the layout is not that different from the invoice, whereas we have a header section at the top. We have a menu bar in the top right. We have quick navigation, which we also had on the invoice. We have this section down here where you do most of your data entry. Whenever you're adding any kind of accounting transaction in NEXSURE, it will have the same pattern. So we want to receive a down payment today from the client. And so the first field we're addressing here is the remitter name. Now if we already know it's from data source, then I could put data source here. In fact, I could just copy and paste it here, or I could just leave it blank because it's kind of redundant knowing it comes from the same client. If this was a payment from the finance company, then I might type Imperial or whoever the finance company is here as the remitter. But in this case, we'll go ahead and we'll just put something in there. The date booked, anytime you see the date booked in NEXSURE, that's the most important date for accounting. The date booked is the day that the debits and credits actually hit the general ledger. So in this case, it'll be the day that we pay that invoice, or we apply this payment to the invoice. So date booked is important. You'll see other dates. You'll see date created, date posted. You'll see date, effective date, of course, expiration date, and date due. But the one for debits and credits is always the date booked. So we'll leave that on today, but I could backdate that if I needed to. We'll say that it is a check, but you can see there are a lot of different options here for methods of payment. Cash check, credit card, EFT, ACH, and so we'll let this one be a check. And reference, it defaulted CK # for the check number. There's a place in the system where you can set what you want to default here. So if you most often you receive checks, then that would be appropriate. But if you don't receive checks all that often, then you may not want that there. But in our training database, somebody put this in as a default so that we wouldn't have to type it. So I'll go ahead and type in the exact check number, and the payment amount we said would be $500. And the description we'll call it EQFL down payment, something like that. Hey. Okay. And you have more space to type here if you need to. You're not limited to that width of the box. The reference does not have quite as many characters, but it will let you go for a ways. About 30 characters, I think. The description, I think, might have 50. I can't remember now that I think about it. Okay, so far so good. We haven't allocated this to an invoice yet. And if I just leave this screen right now, if I close to get out of here, it will not save. It'll save what I have up here in the header, but it won't capture this entry that I've just put in. It is a true internet-based system, which means when you type some information in the field, it doesn't capture it until you hit update or save, or you click on the next link or submit or something like that to where it tells it to capture the data. So in NEXSURE, that means you can click save, or you can just click any of these quick navigation links. So if I want to jump from here to go look for invoices, because we want to find that invoice to apply the payment to, that automatically saves and captures that data I just entered. So now I can see that in my header that here's my check number, here's my description, here's my dollar amount that I put in, and it was a check. So just by clicking on anything over here, it will capture that, and also the save button will capture it. It's the same when you're working on forms in NEXSURE. If you got a big long accord form, as you advance from one section to the next, it saves it, and as you click save, it'll save it. So just moving through the form will save it periodically, but if you're ever concerned that you might lose something, just periodically hit save. But you shouldn't. As you get used to the system, you won't even think about it. That's just how you navigate through the system. So all I did was click invoices, and it presented me with the outstanding open invoices for this client. And it looks like we have a reversal here. You remember 31457 and its reversal and the rebill? It had two lines. It had one for the this particular one had GL and I think business auto, commercial auto. So looking at this line item here, I can tell I've got a reversal, and here's the reversal of the same line item, so you can see the ins and outs here. And then down 31601, I have the rebill invoice, the one I want to keep, the most recent one. And you can also tell by installment number that besides the fact that it has a plus in front of it, numerically, this is a bigger number, so you know it happened after those other items. So if I wanted to, I could pick all these items that offset to 0, and by selecting them, it would clean them out. it would mark them all paid by offsetting against each other. But I want to save the cleanup for tomorrow or Thursday, so I want to leave the mess behind, and we can clean that up. We'll clean this up when I teach you how to do cleanup. So I'm going to leave them here, but you could just as easily in real life pick all these. Well, actually, the $500 we have to decide what line item we want to pay that against. But I'm going to leave that I'm going to leave this mess here, and let's just focus on this one invoice. So I have a choice. I have a $500 payment. I could put it all on one premium or the other, or I could split it between these two premiums and decide how I want to divide that up. In this case, let's do $300 against the larger premium. So instead of just checking the box and telling it to pay that in full, it would just apply $500. I'm going to click the details icon, and I'm going to say I want add new. I want to add a $300 amount to this particular line, and say OK, and then OK, good, and then I can close that. And what that'll do is apply a $300 amount to this first line, so it has a new balance of $1,100. Up here in my header, I can see what's happened. The original payment was $500. So far, I've allocated 3, and the balance is 2. So let's put the balance on this second line down here. So, and I could just select it. I could click the details and tell it to pay $200, but the system knows there's only $200 left. So if I just select that and hit Pay All Selected, it will take the remaining amount and apply it to that line. So here's my $650. There's my $200 assigned with a new balance of $450. And again, I'm going to leave these. I could click them all right now and mark them as paid for cleanup, but I'm going to leave them open. So now in my header, I can see that of the payment amount of $500, I've allocated the full amount. There's no balance left over. So I'm going to post that, and that one's done. I can click OK to confirm, and that will post. Now this is real-time accounting. There is no end of day you have to run. There's no end of month that's required. When you post something in NEXSURE, it's immediate. So if I go run reports right now, it's going to reflect these transactions that we posted just now. So now when I click Close, it takes me back out to the client screen. And I think since we talked about reports, well, wait a minute. While we're here, let me go into that rebill that we just paid. I'm going to open the details. I want to show you something here. In NEXSURE, at a glance, you can look at the header of the invoice and see that of the $20.50 that there's so far $500 has been paid, and now we're waiting for $15.50. But if I want to know what paid this, from here I can click the receivables. I have receivables and payables tabs at the top. If I click receivables, it'll show me the transaction history of what payments were applied to this invoice. And it happened to be receipt number 692, where I applied $200 to that line and $300 to that line. And so it gives you your new balances over here and then the remaining balance. So it keeps a running total for all the payments that are applied. If for any reason I go and reverse this, let's say the check bounces and I reverse that, and then I create a new one, it'll show the reversal as in with the money coming back out, and then the new payment would show the new payment being applied. So it keeps an ongoing running total of all of the receipts that have been used to pay this invoice. Any questions so far? Okay, notice it also shows me my check number there. I'm going to take a little bit of a detour now, and I think this would be a good time to look at some reports. And then, well, let's receive another payment on account that's not tied to. Sometimes you receive money, but you don't. Maybe it hasn't been billed yet, or maybe for some reason you don't feel like you want to apply it right now. You just want to throw it on the account as an open credit. I can hit Receive Payment and do that from here, or I can use my accounting shortcut to jump over to the accounting transaction screen. And again, the accounting shortcut is between the binoculars and the telephone here. That jumps me over to the accounting screen, or the accounting area, where I can do journal entries, disbursements, receipts, deposits, accounts payable, reconciliations. I can view and look up any invoice in the system from here. Summary bills we'll talk about later, but a summary bill is when you have multiple invoices and you want to send the client one document for all of the invoices. You don't want to send them 11 pieces of paper. You can create a summary bill where you pick those 11 invoices and it'll present them on one sheet. It's really cool. I'm not sure if AMS has a feature like that or not, but you might have heard of that in AMS. I don't know, but it looks really great in NEXSURE. And we'll do that later on. So let's receive a payment for data source. Well, let's receive a payment for somebody else. I guess we could do ABC logging. That'll work. And we'll just do a generic payment. So I'm going to click my shortcut button again. Receive payments. And this is how you do one that's just on account. On the right, you have an Add New link. Here it's showing me all the ones that I've done in the past. So you click Add New. This one's from a client. Happens to be ABC. So just type in part of the name, and this was ABC logging. That's fine. And this screen, of course, we were just on, only this one's for a different client. So if I just want to receive money and not apply it to anything, then again, my remitter name, if I wanted to, I could copy and paste that in there. Or I could leave it blank. If it's the same, it doesn't matter. Today's date, maybe I want to backdate this to something that came in yesterday. This was a wire transfer, and so I don't need the check number, but maybe I have my wire transfer ID number, which are usually pretty long and obnoxious. You don't have to put in a number, or if it was for a credit card, you might put in something like this. Put in the last 4 digits or something for your own sanity. Payment amount, let's say we received $1,000, and description could just be payment on account. We don't have an invoice yet. You can put whatever message you would like to see there. I'd recommend you don't ever leave the description blank, because when you're looking through a long list of transactions, if I save that, I'll show you what I mean. I'll save it to capture what I've just done and then come back out to the summary screen. So if I'm looking down 15 receipts for ABC logging, it'll be easier for me to pick out the payment on account as opposed to the others because I put in a description. So always be in the habit of putting in a good description. And also that'll show on many reports and general ledger reports. You'll be able to see the description, which is helpful to understand what happened. So try not to leave that blank. Okay, we're done there. Since I'm not going to apply this to anything, I'm not going to come over here to invoices and apply it to an invoice. I'm not going to put it in a general ledger account anywhere. I'm just going to leave it where it is. So all I had to do is complete these fields and post. And notice allocated shows 0. So this has an unused balance of $1,000. We call that a residual balance, a leftover balance. So if ever you don't apply some money or you don't apply all of it and you have some leftover money, it'll show here as a balance. And when I come back out to the screen, you'll see there's a column here for residual. And that just means that this is how much of that $1,000 is still available to be used somewhere else. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm not hearing anybody objecting, so I'm going to keep going. And again, if you have any questions, be sure to interrupt me. Okay, now is a good opportunity to jump into some reports. I wanted to get a residual out there so we could see it on the account receivable report. So up on the red menu at the top, and by the way, you could change the colors of this menu, so yours might not be red anymore. And also you can add your logo, so your Geller Insurance logo could be in this corner instead of the NEXSURE logo. Let's go to Reports, and on the black menu you'd click Reports again to select a report. So this is the report selection window, and the report type lets you pick what category or what type of report you want, and we'll be using strictly accounting reports in these sessions. And that's actually where the bulk of the reports are accounting reports. And then report category, we don't want payables, we want to do receivables this time. We'll look at a carrier payable report in a minute. So accounts receivable. So I have several accounts receivable reports to choose from, and you can look and see which one you like best, but my personal favorite is the second one down. It's just called Age Client Accounts Receivable Details. Anything that ends in XDR is one of our newer report set, and they all export to Excel. You can also export these to Excel, but this one only has the Excel option, and it presents really well in Excel. The data is really clean, looks good in Excel, but the one I'm going to show you today is a PDF report, and then if you like, I can show you the Excel version. So when I select that report, it brings me into the screen and shows me all of the prior reports of this type that we've run, and it'll keep a history back to the dawn of mankind. It keeps an ongoing history of all reports you run in the past. So some of these go back to, well, that's not that far back, June of 2014. Oh, this is only page 1 of 5, so I could go to the last page and see that maybe our first report in this database happened to be December 11th, 2012. And if I wanted to view any of those, I would just click the magnifying glass to see what report I ran way back in December of 3 years ago. If you don't want to keep a report, if there's no reason to hang on to it, you could pick any of these reports and you could just trash can those, and it'll let you delete it from the record if your security allows it. You can delete a report. So these are all prior reports. I'm going to run a new one. And to run a new one, you can see that you have a menu bar here, and one of the options on the right is New Report Criteria. So I click that, and I'm going to say, I'm just going to put as of, I don't know, 2/28/2015. By default, this particular report will go straight to the end of the current month. Now I could change that date if I want. I have a calendar tool here if I want to pick the date on the calendar tool, but that's okay with me. I just want to see what's out there. So I'm not going to change anything else. All I did is enter a description and let the date stand, and then just click OK. But you do have options in here to say, well, this is only for Bill. I only want to see it for this particular client. I want to group these by the territory, or you can pick different ways by the client name. So you can mess with it a little. Do you want a page break between each grouping? So if I group it by producer, I want a page break for each producer so I can hand them a copy of their own receivables that they need to collect. So anyway, you can do a page break. In fact, if I were to do that, I would leave it on assignment, which was the default. Change this to page break yes. And what that means is that every time it changes to the different producer, it'll give you a page break. And PDF is a really clean layout for this report, so I'm going to leave that alone. So really all I changed, I didn't even change the date. I put in a description, and I told it to give me a page break. So I'll just say OK. Sounds like somebody dropped from the call. I don't care if Martha leaves me, but Wendy and Dehanna, are you still here?
I'm here, Dehanna.
Dehanna, are you with us?
I'm here. Yeah, Dehanna is still here.
Good. Okay. Must have been Martha that bailed on us. She's probably heard enough. Enough of my whiny voice. Okay. It's not whiny. It's just a little hoarse today. All right. So it's currently running, and it's in blue while it's running. And when it's finished, it'll be black. And I'm sure it's done by now. It only takes a few seconds. And so if I hit refresh, then I can see that it goes out and refreshes that and say, yep, it is complete. When it's complete, it'll be black, and it's in a bold font like this up until the first time you view it. So I know that all these have already been viewed because they're no longer in a bold font. But the one I haven't viewed is still bold, and so I'll view that. 139 pages, wow. We've got a lot of receivables. Somebody needs to get working here. All right, got to get our producers out collecting money. We can't be the bank here. All right, so AVC logging. What have I done? Okay, this one is an old one. Coincidentally, somebody had put in one on November 10th in the same dollar amount as the one we did today. And notice it's over 90 days old, and that's weird. It's $1,000 too. These are residual receipts that came in that have not yet been applied, so they're credits. One of them is 26 days old, which ages according to the day you use on the as of date. So 28 minus 2 is 26, and today's the 2nd. So that, oh, today's the 3rd. Anyway, it's 26 days old based on that date. But this one was from November, and so we're going to, that's nice to see that it's here, but I don't know who put that there. We could go look it up. But Anderson's Towing, again, you have I should probably go over the columns here. The client name, the assignment here is the producer that's assigned, or the account manager, whoever's the primary assignment. And this one doesn't have a primary assignment, apparently. The name of the client, the transaction ID, what it is, the dates. The assignment should show the producer name here, how much the receivable total amount was. If any of that was prepaid, like you receive a payment before the invoice date and you apply it to the invoice in advance, it'll show in this future column. And then you have your aging 0 to 30, 31 to 60, and so forth. And then the new balance. So if you've received partial payments, this receivable balance column here will show you the remaining balance. And then your, of course, number of days for aging. So that's 110 days old, based on the 28th of the month. Probably should have just let it pick today instead of the end of the month. Then the aging would show as of today. So there actually are quite a few receipts in here. Let's go find data. What was it, data source as our other client? And ABC logging under Teresa, actually. So there are more ABC loggings. To do a search, because this is 139 pages long, and I told it to sort by producer instead of by client name. So the ABC could show up in other places, and they are going to show up under Teresa. So you can do Control F as in find, and I could type in ABC logging, or just ABCL would be enough. And I would have it just start looking. There we go. Here's some for under Kathy's name. And there are a whole bunch of them actually. And ABC Lawn Service, that's ABCL. Gee. There we go, Teresa Sheehan. Here's the one that we put in yesterday. So under Teresa, you can see the invoice that's still outstanding. The $12,500, no payments have been applied, so this full amount is still due. But if we were to look for data source, there's a partial payment on that one. Okay, under data source, now this one of course spans 2 pages. At the bottom of this page we can see the reversal. At the top of the next page we can see the rest of the reversal and then the invoice where we did the partial payment. So the original receivable amount was $1,400, but $300 of that's been paid, so the new balance is $1,100 and it's in the 0 to 30 column. The $650 amount, the remaining balance on that is only $450, so it does have the, it subtracted out the amount that's been applied. Does that make sense? Okay, I didn't hear anybody complain, so the layout's pretty clean on this report. If you wanted to run this to Excel, the best Excel report is the top one, at least in my humble opinion. And I'll show it to you real quickly here so you can see the layout on this one. By default, I may not like the dates that it picks, and so I could click cancel and I can mess with the filter settings. But the newer style has the filter on top, and then in the lower part of the window, it'll present us with the data in just a moment. Okay, so here we have, and this one is sorted by a client name. Here we have a long report, and it has quite a number of pages. In fact, This one is going to have 20 pages in a more of a table format. The nice thing about this is I can easily export this to Excel or any other type of, there are quite a few choices here, but I'm going to send this one to Excel. That's the one I'm most comfortable with. So at the bottom it says, do you want to open or save? Well, I think I'll save that and give it a name, and I'll save it to my desktop just so we can find it easily. So I'll call it Test A R Report for Geller, or something like that. Don't pay any attention to my capitalization here. All right, I'm going to save it to my desktop. It's completed, so now when I click open, I'm working on the copy that's on my desktop. So this report actually has a lot of columns in it, and so what I like to do is clean it up a little. First thing I do is get rid of this top line that has the title in it, and then I don't like the way it does the wrap text because it doesn't show me enough data, so I turn the wrap text off. So now I've got a lot more, I can see a lot more on my screen at once. But this is the very same report in a spreadsheet format. So I may decide, well, I don't really need that column. I don't need reversal. And if I did reverse it, it shows me the reversal traffic or the reversal relationship there. I don't need this column, so you can clean it up however you need to make it presentable and easy to read. Right now I'm looking at this on a very low resolution for the GoToMeeting session, so when I have my resolution cranked up, it's really tight and nice, and you can see a lot at once. So alphabetically, we could go down to data source, and you'd see the same information here. Let me just highlight those as we go across the screen, and you can see the original amounts, the new amounts. I should show you the column headings, and the new balance due. See, these two offset each other. That's the cleanup we're going to do later, and here's the new balance of the one that's already had payments applied. So just a different way to look at the same report. Let's take a minute and look at a carrier payable report. Hold on just a moment, I need to cough. I guess it's an occupational hazard. I spend my day talking on the phone to people, and so I didn't get enough rest over the weekend, I guess. All right, I'm still here. I'm alive. If you hear me keel over and sound like I fall off my chair, you guys can all dial 911 for me. Okay, reports. Here we go. Reports. And this one is a payable report, and the one I like best is carrier payables details because it gives me all the detail. And this one has a really nice layout. For the sake of time, well, I'll run a new one. It only takes a second. And I'll just say this one's as a 2/3/13, and I'll change that to today's date. I could pick a specific client or a specific carrier. I could group it and sort it however I want. I could say, only show me the ones where we've received our full payment from the client or the finance company.
Yeah.
Or I could say, show me everything. So that sometimes you want to filter this report to only show you the ones that you've been paid so you know what you need to pay the carrier. So that might be a reason. But for the first time through, I'm just going to leave the default settings. So the only thing I changed was I backdated it to today's date.
Okay.
Okay, so this will run. It's currently compiling. If I hit refresh, it's done. This one's only 63 pages. I still have some work to do. But let's take a look and see what we've got here. Similar layout. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Our carrier here is Alliance United, And then George Carrington has this invoice for this homeowner's policy. Policy number on that one's been unassigned, but normally, of course, they would have policy numbers. This is a training database. The original invoice amount for the accounts receivable and how much of that has been paid. So of the $2,300 that was invoiced, $2,277 has been paid. So this one's not fully paid at this time. This one's not paid at all because the AR balance is still completely open. This one down here that says 0, that one's been fully paid because the new AR balance is 0. So that one I probably want to get that out to my carrier right away because I received the money for that one. So you can use the AR balance column to know, or you can also set it in the filter so it will only show you these that have a 0 balance. And it does show your agency commission. 20% of premium is what that percent P means. If it were flat, it would say F, I believe. Do I see any flats in here? Oh, wait. No. Looks like we're mostly percent of premium in our training database. Anyway, that's what that means. And then the agent's commission is your agency. So on this one, of a $500 premium, you earn $90, which is 18%. You owe $410 to the carrier. Nothing's been paid so far, so the full $410 is still due to the carrier. The AR balance on this one's 0, so I probably want to send that one out right away. Okay, any questions on the on the carrier payable report? This one can also be sent out as an Excel report if you prefer.
How do you reconcile it? Like, how do you amend it?
Well, I mean, if something is wrong.
Yes.
Let's say this endorsement is wrong. Endorsements are at 12% or something. You would go reverse and rebill that invoice. Or if it's just
what if everything that's on there, or what if you, you know, maybe it's not wrong, but you aren't paying it yet or something.
Well, this is just a report to show you what's available to be paid.
Oh.
You don't actually pay it from this report.
Okay. Okay.
So let's pick one to pay, though. That's a good question. So let me just, you lead us right into the next area we need to go. And we've got about, we started a little bit late. We've got about 15 minutes if you're okay with rolling to a few minutes after the hour. So the next thing naturally is that you want to pay some of these. And so I'm going to go back to NEXSURE. You can leave the report open and I can just click on the NEXSURE tab to go back. And let's say we want to pay auto owners. And maybe we don't want to pay all of these. Does auto owners have any that are fully paid? They do. They have that one and these. Gummy Worms Factory. Okay. Yeah, there are enough there that we could pay. So we're going to pay auto owners. So I'm going to jump back to NEXSURE. To do that, I do a reconciliation like you mentioned. How do I reconcile what I'm about to pay? So I click my accounting shortcut and I go to reconciliation. We're also going to use reconciliation for direct bill later on. But today we're going to use it for agency bill. So I want to add a new reconciliation for auto owners. And just say okay. So I just highlight the one and I just typed in AUT. It found these others because they're subsidiary companies or they have AUT in the name. But I'm just going to pick the one that has the P in parentheses because that's the primary, that's the parent, which is 98% of the time that's your billing carrier. Or this could just as easily be the name of one of your brokers. So we want to pay auto owners, and I could say, do you usually pay off a statement or do you pay them throughout the month as the payments come in from AR?
Both. We do both.
Okay.
I mean, it's off of statement, but we also have companies we pay off of invoice.
Okay, so it looks the same. The difference here on the description might be that I would type January statement, because I'm just going to grab all that are on the statement. But if I'm paying ABC trucking and DEF florists, you know, you could put that in. You could put in policy numbers. I'm sorry, I must sound awful. I'm really not that sick. Okay, so you could name the client and policy numbers if you're doing just a handful. Or if it's off a statement, you could just say this is the January statement. So either way, whatever makes sense to you, actually, you can type there. January statement. So under quick navigation, where do you think, looking at these links, where would I find my agency bill invoices? This is a tough one.
This is agency bill?
Invoices, agency bill, okay. When we do direct bill reconciliation, we'll be using the other links there. Now, it found some, but it didn't find all. And the reason is, in our filter, it's only looking at the prior month. So commonly, if you can't find what you need immediately, you'll go into your filter, and you do that by clicking Show, the blue link there. And you can see my date range defaulted to last month. Well, I don't want a date range. So I could either change it, or I could just click Clear and then click Search again. And now I've got 7. And I just might as easily I might have 700 out there. So what you do is you can use your filter to say, only to show me the ones where I've been fully paid. And when you do that, it only shows you the ones where the AR amount is 0. Or you can say, instead of that, I can search for a specific policy number or a particular client if I want to. I'm going to leave it open for all of them. If you do have, it only displays the first 10 by default, but if I do have 150, I could just tell it to display as many as 500 at once or as many as 1,000 at once. And then it would display all 150 in a row, and I could look up and down the list. And I could sort it. Currently, this isn't sorted by alphabetically. It looks like it's sorted by a invoice number. So I could say, well, I'd rather have it sorted alphabetically. So I could say client name, ascending, or descending if I want it upside down, or policy number. Depending on if I'm paying off a statement, is my statement sorted by policy number or by client name? So you can mess with the sort and then search again, and it'll redo the list in alphabetical order, or however you'd like it. So today, it would let me pay some where I have not received AR balances. It looks like I didn't have my filter dates out of the last one. So again, this is cleanup here. You can see the reversal. Do I want that to show on my report to my carrier that I have a reversal that I've cleaned out? No. I probably don't want auto owners to see that. So I'll clean that up later. But I do want to pay that one, that one, that one, and that's enough. I'll pay this one. So when you select the ones you want to pay, over on the right, you could type in the amount you want to pay, and it will automatically select that line. Or you can select it and say, I only want to pay $1,500 of that one, not the full amount for any reason. You can pay partial. Or if you just leave these all at 0, as long as you've checked the line, once you hit Pay All Selected, it will fully pay each of those lines unless you've typed in a lesser amount. So it's telling me, well, the first one, I had typed in the amount, so it knows that. So when I click Pay All Selected, it's only dealing with these 3, because the other one's already got a payment at $2,000 applied because I manually typed that in. But it's going to apply payment to 3 invoices for a total of for a total of 12,530.28 on those three, and then the grand total, of course, is 14. We'll see that in just a second. So that refreshes the screen and shows me that these 4 invoices now are fully paid, and the new balance on each of those is 0. And up in my header, I can see that my payable total that I've done so far is 14,530.28, and it's about to create a disbursement in that amount. The virtual disbursement is the anticipated disbursement that's about to be created. So before I post, I always want to check and make sure that's the right dollar amount. So if it's not, maybe I've missed one, maybe something hasn't been billed that I need to go find. Maybe they billed it wrong and I need to reverse and rebill it. There is one other thing you can do here called commission adjustment. So on the fly, if I notice that this 20% should have been 18%, rather than reverse and rebill that invoice, I can click on the invoice number and it will open up that invoice for me. And if I scroll down to the commissions part of the invoice, it will let me either add an adjusting amount as a flat amount or a percentage, or I can just go into the one that's already here and I can change it up or down. If I say that should have been 18, watch what it does. It'll create a second line item for that negative 2%. It can't change this because this is already posted and it's already part of accounting history. So this is like an addendum to this invoice. This 2% change gets posted as an addendum to the invoice, and it'll show as a -1 on the invoice number. And by the way, it does affect the producer's commission. That 2% caused Kathy to get deducted $15.90. No, $3.18, sorry. So it does adjust the producer's commissions as well. So when I'm ready and that all looks correct, I can post that. And then you can see on the screen coming up here that it created a new line item here, and see the invoice number with a -1 for that negative 2% adjustment on there. And it is checked. I just have to tell the system, yeah, I do indeed want to pay that. And so it's adding this one item to the rest, and I say okay. And now I've got 5 line items selected here. So this could be 100, it could be, you know, however many are on the statement, or however many you're paying at once. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, it does right now.
Okay.
I hope that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Under quick navigation, I want to go back to the header screen. Since I intend to create a disbursement from this, I want to check this box, because this automatically creates the disbursement if this box is checked. And I pick the bank account I want it to hit. And if I want it to be a check or an EFT or, you know, whatever payment method, I'm going to leave this one on check. And this is my trust account. So if you set that up and you check this box, then as soon as I post it, it creates a posted disbursement right at that instant that's ready to print to a check. If I don't check that box, then I have to go to disbursement, add new disbursement, go find Recon 689 and pull it in, which doesn't take very long, but it takes about, you would be in at 6 or 7 clicks before you'd be ready to post it. So just by checking that box, it'll do all that automatically. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to post it and confirm. Okay. Notice it shows me my debits and credits down here. It also tells me my reconciliation is not 0. Well, I know that because I'm creating a disbursement for $14,000. I don't know why they, if it's direct bill reconciliation, you do want it to be 0. But on agency bill where you're paying a carrier, you'll see this message every time. But that's okay. We do want to create a disbursement so we know the balance of this recon is not 0. It's $14,000. So I'll say okay. Okay, and that's now posted. Tells me it's posted right here. Tells me my date booked. If I want to see my debits and credits, where do I go? Another pop quiz for you. Remember, it's always the last link under quick navigation. I can see that, I'll tell you about the recon clearing account in a minute. We have all these invoices we paid, so it's debiting our carrier payable account for each one. And then the offsetting credit is temporarily sent to a recon clearing account, and the disbursement pulls it out of that recon clearing account and credits the bank. So that's kind of like a holding account for reconciliation items, and we're in a recon, so it throws it into that account temporarily. But if we go look at the disbursement now, I'll go over here to disbursements. Right on the top of the list is my auto owner's check that I just created. I haven't printed it yet, so there's no check number yet. But it's for the right dollar amount. It was created by me on this date. It is posted, but it's not printed and it hasn't cleared the bank. That's what those columns mean. And of course, go ahead.
Could you have printed it from where you just were?
No. You could print the remittance report, but not the actual check. The check has to be done here. But you can print them as a batch from here. So if you do several, then you can come here and create a print batch, and you can select multiple items and say print this batch, and it will send those to the printer. So the recon is where you do the work, and under disbursements is where you print. That's actually not a bad idea. Why not just put a check in the printer and, you know, where it said, not disbursement.
Well, right there it says print, and I just wondered, I guess that just prints the...
Yeah, maybe a future idea that you could bring up with the users group is say, well, why not have a print now box that you check, and it would send it to the printer right now. You'd have to be sure you had a check in the printer, and it would ask you for the check number, or it would pick the next one if you're using the check sequencing in the system. But anyway, currently you come to disbursements, and I can either select that and create a print batch. We'll do print batches tomorrow. I'm going to print this one individually by opening its details. And here I can click this print link, and this is where it lets me pick my check style. And you'll set up a default check style for your bank. For each bank account, it'll have its own default check style. So I'll use this one. And if I didn't print the remittance report in the recon, if I forgot, which we did, I can tell it to print it now by checking that box. So it not only prints a check, but it also prints the report that goes with it. While you're in the recon, we could have hit print to get this report as well. But it lets you do both from here if I check that box. So I'll say OK. And if I know my check number, I can type it in now. But if I leave it blank, the system's going to assign the next available check number in its check sequence. 99% of the time it'll be accurate, but if somebody does something to mess up a check, or they go change the next check number, they adjust it in the bank account settings, you may not get the check number you want, and then you have to reprint it. And anyway, so usually I put in the check number because I have it in my hand, and I just fed it into the printer. That way you know for sure you're not going to have to reprint the check. Oh, whoops. I did something funny here. I think I might have lost my session. Let's try it again. Yeah, hold on a second. Sorry. I've done something in the GoToMeeting, I think, to mess up my session. Let me go back in. And this is the training database, if I can remember my password. Okay, so we were just in disbursements, and we had opened up this disbursement, and we were about to print it, and my check style came up. I'll check that box. And this is what the check looks like on Oh, this is my remittance report. Let me blow that up a little so you can see it. This is what you would include with the check. Quite often the work you do doesn't fit on the check stub. If you only have 4 or 5 line items, it will show on the check stub, and you could use that in lieu of this report. But quite often what you need doesn't fit on a check stub, and so you would include this report with the check, and it would have your grand total here. Let me go back to the check now. Here's the check. I'm going to expand this screen here so you can see what a laser check looks like without the check form, just on blank paper is what it. So it shows a check with 2 stubs, and this one's with a check on top and 2 stubs on the bottom. The memo here is what I put in the description line of my reconciliation. So if I had put John Smith, policy number 23469, that would show here. Okay, any questions? Were you able to use the checks that you printed yesterday to line up to see how it fits your existing check stock?
I haven't had a chance to look at it really yet, so but I did print. I printed both of those, yes.
Great. Okay, when you have
Yeah.
time, let me know how that turns out. Sometimes one of the forms, there's no way it would work because the check already has lines on it, and NEXSURE also prints the lines, and then it would just have too many lines.
Oh, yeah.
But then the other one or the other will look much better, and then you have to decide, does it line up really well? Is the alignment acceptable until we run out of checks, or is it perfect? You know, or is this not acceptable? And in that case, you'd have to order new checks or find another way to run off the ones you currently have before you order new ones in NEXSURE. Most of the time, it's acceptable or it's a good fit. So I'm hoping because you already used Deluxe checks that it's a popular style.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me know how that goes. Okay, we covered some ground today. We pretty much wrapped up all the basic agency bill stuff. There are, of course, more in-depth things that we can do in later sessions, but the idea of this training is to get you in to see how the invoices flow, to see how payments can come in, to see a reversal, and figure out how to pay the carrier, to kind of get your feet wet. And now you can log in and practice. And when you're ready to go live, we also do follow-up training sessions where you can make a list of a few things you're not sure about, or maybe you created a few transactions, but you're hesitant to post them until you have us look at them to tell you if you did a good job or not. You can leave them unposted, and we'll review them with you to let you know if you did it right.
That's great. And then also, I'm hoping that you have a way to contact for support.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
If we log out, I'll show you that right now. The most effective way with the quickest response is going to be by using our support ticketing system, because as soon as they come in, they get assigned. So from the login screen, and let me go back to there. When you're logging into NEXSURE, now I'm taking you to the corporate site. Let me just go back. At the bottom it says support right here.
Yeah.
And that's the email address right there. Before long it'll be in your email already and you won't have to come find it. But just by clicking on that, it will open a new email for NEXSURE. But that's our support email. So what happens is the email comes in and it lands in a queue of unassigned tickets. And it sends you a response right away saying your ticket number is 45621. And then it gets assigned to the next available person who's smart enough to answer your question. And we do compartmentalize a little bit. We have some people that are really smart in policy management and forms, and I'm not that person. I love the accounting stuff. And so if it's accounting related, 70% of the time it may come to me or Martha, or sometimes Mary and Teresa pick those up, or Patrick or John or Mark. But you'll get to know us by name, and You know, if you'll know if I send this in, I'll probably get Dave, and you say, "Darn, I wanted to talk to Martha." So you could say, "Attention, Martha," in the subject line, and then they'll assign it to Martha. So, but it happens. We all have our specialties, and we do cross train. And Martha's training right now, which is great, and she's going to be doing more and more of the accounting support along with what she already does, which is great. So we're glad to have her. But anyway, I thank you for your time today, and tomorrow let's shoot for 12 o'clock noon, and we'll pick up where we left off. Tomorrow we're going to start right up with direct bill.
Okay, great.
So if you have any more agency bill questions, then write them down, and we'll get to them after.
Okay.
I'll try going in earlier and make sure I'm just sitting there waiting.
Yeah, it's fine if you'd like to go sit in there before I get there. I usually try to log in 3 or 4 minutes before it starts, but I'm not much earlier than that, typically. So, but yeah, go ahead and sit in the session, and you can actually log into NEXSURE with the training, log in and practice a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
I'll talk to you tomorrow then. Hope you feel better.
I feel great. I just can't talk. It's frustrating, but I do feel fine.
All right.
So thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.